Based on the latest long-term computer model runs as well as forecasts from the Climate Prediction Center, it's likely at this point we're going to experience an El Nino pattern this winter, which will play a major role in determining what type of winter conditions you should experience. However, we definitely need to specify which type of El Nino we're going to experience, because there's definitely differences when it comes to the type of conditions you experience between a weaker El Nino, a moderate El Nino, or a strong El Nino. But typically what happens in general during an El Nino, we see more moist and cooler than average conditions right around the southeast, so this could enhance the possibility of snowstorms for you guys if you're hoping for snow in the southeast. And it's more moist than average thanks to a subtropical right around the southwest, thanks to a subtropical jet that moves a little bit further northward, and it's a lot more powerful, so of course it brings more troughs throughout the entirety of the southern United States. It's simply warmer right around the Pacific Northwest and the northern Midwest because we see a big ridge dominate with the jet stream so high up when it comes to latitude, where we don't see a lot of jet stream dips during an El Nino pattern in the United States. And for the Ohio River Valley, we typically see drier than average conditions. It's also due to the fact that the jet stream is a little bit too far north to bring a lot of troughs and precipitation towards the area, so we typically see drier than average conditions. But for the Northeast, it could be anywhere from much cooler than average winter or much warmer than average winter. We're going to need to take a look at several different factors, such as the sea Serp temperatures as well as the Pacific North American Oscillation, to really determine what type of conditions you will experience not only in the Northeast but the entire United States in general, because we can't go off of this map alone to make this winter forecast for the 2023-2024 winter season. So taking a look at the climate division plot anomaly for when it comes to temperature, and in this anomaly, or at least in this climate plot, I listed all the strong El Ninos because the most likely scenario based on what the computer models are saying is that we're going to experience a strong El Nino. And when it comes to the temperature anomalies, at least compared to long-term average, we see that much of the United States typically experiences cooler than average temperatures. This includes the southwest United States as well as portions of the southeast, where you experience temperatures anywhere from 2 to 4 degrees below average, which is quite significant and could definitely make the difference in a lot of areas between you experiencing rain or experiencing snowfall. And this includes portions of the Northeast to a lesser extent, but typically during a stronger El Nino, we see cooler than average temperatures, and the only areas where we see warmer than average temperatures compared to the long-term average is right around the Pacific Northwest, where the departure from average could range anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees above average. So it is definitely a climate plot we definitely need to take into account when making this winter forecast. And the general idea from this climate plot is that much of the southern United States especially will experience a colder than average winter. So if you're hoping for snow in the areas further southward, this could be the winter that will definitely enhance that possibility. When it comes to the precipitation anomalies for compared to the long-term average for strong El Nino years, we do see that it's typically drier than average right around the Ohio River Valley, thanks to jet stream being far up northward. However, the departure from average isn't as strong as, let's say, with the temperature anomalies, where we do see some areas in the Pacific Northwest slightly drier than average, but the southeast especially sees a higher departure from average when it comes to receiving more precipitation portions such as Louisiana and Texas. So the general consensus is that much of the southern United States should not only experience colder than average conditions but also more moist than average conditions, while areas right around the Ohio River Valley as well as the Pacific Northwest should experience a warmer and drier winter. Another pattern we need to take a look at is Pacific North American Oscillation, and pretty much what this pattern represents is that if we're in a positive phase, then we're more likely to see a strong ridge over the western half of the United States, bringing much warmer and drier than average conditions over the western half of the United States, while the eastern half experiences cooler temperatures as well as more moist than average conditions during a positive Pacific North American Oscillation. But during a negative phase, we see the opposite occur, where we see a strong ridge primarily bringing warmer than than average conditions to much of the eastern half of the United States, while being drier than average. And for the West Coast, it's the opposite, where you see more moisture as well as cooler than average conditions. And right now, based on the current forecast over the next several months, based on the current trend, it seems like we're going to lean a little bit more to a positive Pacific North American oscillation, which should bring cooler than average conditions to much of the eastern half of the United States, as well as snowier than average conditions. Take this with a little bit more of a grain of salt, because it's still it is difficult to forecast a positive North American oscillation months away. But based on the current trend we're seeing, I'll say it's more likely that the positive phase will continue into the winter time, which will bring the temperatures down throughout the eastern half of the United States and bring much warmer than average conditions to the western half, especially the Pacific Northwest, combining that with a strong El Nino pattern. Another big pattern I like to take a look at is a drought monitor, and as of July 25th, we do see that much of the Midwest is currently borderline around a severe drought, and some areas are considered to be under a severe drought. Now, the thing is, the reason why a current drought could potentially affect the winter time is because droughts don't go away very easily. It doesn't go away overnight. It takes time for them, because typically during a drought, of course, it's been dry for a while, so there's a very persistent ridge that's been keeping the air stable and keeping the temperatures much warmer and drier than average over a prolonged period of time. So if this were to continue over the winter, that especially combining the fact that an El Nino is expected to approach, this would only exacerbate the impacts you typically see during an El Nino for much of the Pacific Northwest as well as the Midwest, where you experience more mild and dry conditions during a strong El Nino over this area, which supplements my idea that I believe that much of the Midwest and the Pacific Northwest will experience drier and warmer than average conditions, while the Southeast right now, while conditions are drier than average right over Texas, I don't expect that to last, because for one thing is that we're just entering the heart of the hurricane season, and even if tropical cyclone doesn't necessarily directly impact Texas or Louisiana or the drought-stricken areas at all, there should at least be an influx of moisture over the next several months, especially with the warmer than average sea surface temperatures right over the Gulf of Mexico, due to several potential tropical waves moving in, or just regular summer thunderstorms in general that are produced by the warmer than average sea surface temperatures. So I do expect this drought to eventually go away in Texas, and of course during an El Nino we see a strong subtropical jet move through, so I do believe that eventually the troughs will the amount of troughs that bring precipitation will win out and defeat this drought that's going on, but for the Midwest and the Pacific Northwest, I expect the drought conditions to continue into the winter, which should promote warmer and drier than average conditions over those areas. Another big thing that we need to take a look at is the computer model's long-term forecast, and this is the CFS model, which is a long-term climatology model, and the CFS model for the months of December, January, and entering February of 2024 expects much more moisture than average over the southern United States, as well as more moisture than average right up along the southern coast of California and entering portions of Arizona and New Mexico as well. And this is very reminiscent of what we see during a strong El Nino, so this is definitely believable from the CFS model. And we do see portions where the conditions are drier than average right over the Pacific Northwest as well as the Ohio River Valley, which makes this forecast believable and would only pretty much give me more confidence that we're going to experience more storms than average over the southern United States. When it comes to the temperature anomaly forecast, we see that the CFS model is expecting the pretty much the entirety of the lower 48 to experience warmer than average temperatures, with the emphasis on the departure from average being more so right around the Midwest. However, I'll take this with a grain of salt, because the CFS model has always been very biased in bringing temperatures that are always much warmer than average, which isn't always necessarily the case, every single year. So I'd take it with a little bit more of a grain of salt. While I do agree with the CFS model regarding the exact areas where the temperatures will be at least the warmest from average relative to the other areas in the United States, I don't necessarily agree that the entirety of all these areas will experience a warmer than average winter. I'll say more so right around the Pacific Northwest and the Midwest should experience those warmer than average temperatures, while portions of the Southeast and Southern United States in general would more likely experience cooler than average conditions, especially in the eastern half. We also need to take a look at the sea surf temperatures just off the United States coast. And of course, right around the equatorial Pacific, the sea surf temperatures are warmer than average, which is the reason why the climatology models are forecasting a strong El Nino to build this winter. However, taking a look just off the coast of the United States, especially the East Coast, we're seeing sea surf temperatures almost record-breaking when it comes to how much warmer than average they are. And that could play a role because that could raise the temperature along the coast just enough to where that could make a difference regarding whether you experience rain or snow. So especially along the Interstate 95 corridor, right around Maryland, extending northward into Philadelphia and New York City, these warmer than average sea surf temperatures could potentially bring less snow for you guys, since the rain snow line would lean a little bit towards being a little bit further northward thanks to the warmer sea surf temperatures. That raises the air temperature just enough for you guys to potentially experience more rain events. We're gonna need to see if this keeps up into the winter time, which I do believe it will. However, I don't think this will still be enough to offset the fact that likely the Northeast will experience more snow than average thanks to a positive Pacific North American oscillation taking place, and an El Nino, at least along the eastern half of the United States, does bring a little bit more jet stream dips. But this could still make a slight difference for those who are close to the rain snow line each and every snow event. And moving on to the West Coast, we do see that throughout a large portion of the California coast, the sea surf temperatures are cooler than average, which could definitely lower the temperature along the coast, and it'll have a bigger effect, of course, along the West Coast when it comes to sea surf temperatures, because the winds will move towards the coast rather than compared to the East Coast, where the temperatures move offshore. So the sea surf temperatures will play a bigger role in terms of type of conditions you experience along the West Coast. So but we do see the Pacific Northwest is experiencing sea surf temperatures much warmer than average. So I do believe that will only raise the temperature throughout the Pacific Northwest. So here's my overall winter outlook for the 2023-2024 winter season. So for the Northeast, I'm expecting more winter storms than usual. This is due to the fact that we're likely going to experience a positive Pacific North American oscillation, as well as the fact that we're going to experience an El Nino, which could bring more jet stream dips to this area. And since more troughs are going to move through the Southeast, I'll say along with the jet stream dips that are expected, that more snowstorms could develop, and we could see a higher snowstorm chance in the Southeast as well, thanks to the subtropical jet moving, potentially bringing a lot of those low pressure zones further northward to create more powerful nor'easters, which is the reason why I'm expecting more winter storms than usual and potentially colder than average conditions as well over the Northeast. For the Southeast, I'm expecting more storms than usual, as well as cooler than average conditions, of course, because a subtropical jet is expected to move through, which will bring more moisture. Of course, with more clouds, you're less likely to receive the short wave radiation from the sun that would warm up the temperature. So temperatures should be cooler than average in the Southeast, and the potential of snowstorms should rise thanks to more storms. And then for much of the Pacific Northwest and the Midwest, it should be warmer and drier than average because, like I said, typically during an El Nino, there is a big ridge that dominates this area, so conditions should be very warm and dry. And plus, a large portion of the Midwest is under a severe drought, so I think that will last going into the winter, especially with an El Nino pattern taking place. And for the southwest portion of the United States, I expect it to be more stormy than average, of course, because that's we typically see a strong subtropical jet move through, bringing more storms along the west coast. But that's it for this winter forecast. If you guys want an even more in detail forecast regarding the amount of snow you should expect, if you're going to experience a colder or warmer than average winter, just make sure to comment down below your specific area, and I'll try to give you guys more in detail forecast regarding what type of winter you should expect in your area. So make sure to comment down below if you're interested. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.